Okay. Welcome everyone to the October Sitecore user group session. Today we have Pete Navarra. I'm fortunate to have him talk about SearchStax. Pete is VP DXP Solutions in SearchStax, and he has been in the Sitecore community and in DXP space for last 16 years. He is also a Sitecore MVP. Pete, take away.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Marty. So thank you so much for having me at the October edition of the Columbus Sitecore User Group. Big thanks to Marty, the organizer, and Nishtech for inviting me to talk about Composable Search. Let's see here, and go with the click. So first, a brief introduction for those that don't know me. My name is Pete Navarra. I have been in the Sitecore community for over 16 years now, and I'm a 6-time Sitecore MVP, 5 technology MVPs, and currently an ambassador MVP. I've been a long-time developer, architect, and advocate for many consulting companies in the past, where I've had to advocate on behalf of a number of platforms and implementations, including Sitecore, Coveo, various solar implementations, and even with the fleet of products at SearchStax. I was a customer, a reseller, a developer of SearchStax long before joining the team. But now I do lead the DXP solutions team here at SearchStax. I've been at SearchStax for almost a year and a half now, I think, which is pretty amazing how fast time flies. You know, the joining of the timing of me joining SearchStax could not have been more interesting, especially given my Sitecore history. With the announcement of Sitecore Search last symposium in Chicago, one of the most frequently asked questions that I have been getting ever since then is, well, now that Sitecore Search exists, what does that mean for SearchStax? And even with this presentation, the organizers really wanted to know our side of the search story from SearchStax's point of view. And whenever I hear this question, which I got over and over again at SugCon North America about 2 weeks ago, Sitecore DX in Minneapolis, I always take a step back. And I really ask, why does it sound like I'm being asked from the point of view of competition? When instead, it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing that that there's options. So with that in mind, I want to take an opportunity to briefly talk about what this presentation is all about. As I mentioned in Chicago at my symposium panel, we at SearchStax are actually excited about the opportunity for Sitecore Search coming into the marketplace with us. It has opened up a brand new line of conversation and a renewed focus on search that, while we've been advocating for it for a few years now, it's only starting to become a mainstream topic. We heard right out of the gate at SugCon North America 2 weeks ago, right from Steve's lips, where he said, quote, "Search was broken," in talking about an experience he had on the customer's website. This is really talking to the fact that search has now become, or at least it has now been identified as, a very important component in your customers, in our customers' website. But I also want to mention that what this presentation is not about, and if you are here for it, I apologize ahead of time, it is not a SearchStax Studio versus Sitecore Search competitive cage match pitting one product against the other. This is a talking point that's actually not right for our customers to hear. It's not messaging that we use with our customers, and it certainly does not describe the amazing partnership that we actually have with Sitecore. Outside of our studio product, SearchStax provides the solar services that power Sitecore Managed Cloud for all of Sitecore's customers and the entirety of Sitecore XM Cloud. We love our partnership with Sitecore. So if it's not a cage match, what are we doing here? I might talk about Sitecore Search and some of its feature sets, but I'm also going to talk about other products as well. What we're doing here is talking about why the shift that Sitecore is making to SaaS and their promise for a composable future is not only good for Sitecore, but it's good for our customers and clients as well. This is where composable architecture comes into the foreground. We're used to seeing Sitecore as a monolithic application with all these core features tightly coupled in a manner that makes adjusting, customizing, and selecting different products really difficult. If you want to customize the monolith, get ready for pain. However, going all the way back to the original acquisition of Style Labs, which is now Content Hub, and now with the introduction of XM Cloud, CDP Personalized, Sitecore Search, and a number of other products that Sitecore is offering, it's clear that Sitecore is doubling down on their promise for a composable future. This includes creating a marketplace where third-party platforms and solutions can also be made available. This is the true spirit of composability. So what does it mean to be composable? When we think about composability, I think about three major concepts. The first one is modular components. We're talking about components that can be independent and standalone on their own. They don't need other components in order to function, but they can also provide well-defined interfaces for other components to utilize. You're going to probably hear me say the term well-defined interfaces quite a few times throughout this presentation. You're also, we also, when we think about modular components, we think about, them being easily combined, rearranged, substituted. When we're using composable architecture and we have well-defined interfaces, being able to create a puzzle of different architectures and have them fit together is one of the major tenets of composability. Also, with modular components, they can be developed and tested separately. This is really key. You can have multiple teams working on different aspects and different components of your composable architecture at the same time. One doesn't get blocked by the other. And as long as you have those well-defined interfaces, you don't have to worry about one team getting blocked by the other team. The second is about flexibility and adaptability. Making sure that the modular components that we're using can be easily reused and adapted to meet changing business needs. That they solve the technical and business challenges with the right technologies. And third, speed of development. With composable architecture, we're talking about smaller independent components. These are components that, unlike monolith, we don't have to necessarily regression test an entire platform just because we make one small change in a single component. This allows us to have a faster development cycle. In addition, problems can be isolated. If we have well-defined interfaces between our components inside of our composable architecture, then the only thing we really have to worry about is garbage data going into another component. We don't have to worry about those well-defined interfaces breaking unless there's a breaking change. And we don't talk about breaking changes because breaking changes are really hard. If anybody wants to ever have a fun conversation with Andy Cohen at Sitecore, ask him about XM Cloud and breaking changes, and it was a lot of fun. I'll just say that. But changes won't affect other components. And so, if we do make a change inside of one of our modular components, we have safety in knowing that unless we're changing the well-defined interface, which we shouldn't do that often, because of our well-defined interfaces, these changes won't necessarily affect the other components. So when we're thinking about composable architecture and we have all of these choices and all of these considerations to make when we're starting to put together the puzzle pieces, what really matters and the key point is that as consultants, we need to understand the use cases. We listen to our customers day in and day out, listening to their requirements, listening to their use cases, and it's our job to put together a solution that says, hey, for these customers, these are the right solutions. But there are things that we have to take into consideration. Not all components are right for all use cases, and not all components are right for all customers. We really have to take a look at considerations such as budget, maturity of the company and users and processes. There are some really mature web marketing teams out there that know how to use the plethora of Gen AI and all these other tools, and they get kind of these large, big box, featured-rich set components. There's also a subset of customers who they don't quite have the maturity in their authoring environment, or maybe they don't have the number of users, and maybe they don't have the correct processes, or at least mature processes, to be able to handle all of those features. So then that becomes a problem where we're just overloaded on features. And so understanding what the use cases are and helps us kind of identify what is the correct feature set within the choices of composable architecture that we can choose. And lastly, not all components are actually composable, and so we really have to look at the compatibility of components and look at their composable nature. So in order to kind of talk through what that really means, I think it's important that we do look at a couple different products. So let's consider Sitecore Search for a moment. In Sitecore Search, it has been purpose-built for site search in XM Cloud. They have a crawler plus a push API implementation, and it's going to just work with XM Cloud. It's been bundled, as we heard in SugCon, it's been bundled with XM Cloud Plus. I guess don't get me started on naming. And Sitecore has really expressed their commitment to optimize the XM Cloud environments. We also heard kind of the big slogan as SugCon in 2 weeks ago was that Sitecore is better together, and it's really true. Sitecore's done a great job of keeping their products seamless. Now, that being said, the community's job to help ensure that Sitecore keeps composability open. And one of the things that we heard when we heard about XM Cloud Plus is we were very concerned that this was an opportunity where they were closing the composability. And that's not the case, but it's the community's job to help ensure that Sitecore stays true to that promise for a composable future. So let's consider Coveo as a second product. Coveo is an enterprise search capability software. They have multiple product lines that either do kind of the same thing or different things, or a combination of the two. They are very feature rich. You look at the feature list for Coveo, site search is like one of the bullet points out of a many that they have in their feature list. And so with rich feature sets, we can also kind of take the consideration that not all customers will use all of the features. And they're solving for more use cases than just site search. Additionally, Coveo really has taken to heart the idea of AI and has built in AI as part of their module and process. That being said, with enterprise software comes enterprise price tags, and so not affordable in cost-conscious budgets. And they have the complex feature set. So really understanding that sometimes those complex feature sets aren't always a fit for some organizations. And some of the Coveo processes aren't as composable as some of other products that are in the marketplace, but it's still capable of solving for certain use cases. So lastly, let's consider SearchStax Studio. Now, grid, I have to say, I'm probably going to be biased because I work for SearchStax, but understand that in the last 16 years, my job has been to really be unbiased and think about products from a perspective. And so I really want to make sure that as I continue on with this conversation, that folks know that I'm really coming from a unbiased perspective when I talk about this. SearchStax Studio has a tight site search integration with Sitecore for on-prem and PaaS architectures. We work really well with XM, XP, Sitecore Managed Cloud. And one of the reasons why we work really well with those on-prem architectures is because we actually have a connector called the Studio Connector for Sitecore, and it plugs into the content management service in these on-prem implementations. We can't do that with XM Cloud. XM Cloud doesn't allow us to install those kinds of connectors. So for the on-prem implementations, our connector works really well. We also provide a number of JavaScript frameworks. We provide JS, Vue, and React, and we also have Angular and Next.js in the horizon. And with SearchStax Studio, because we're API first and have been ever since, we actually have allows for easy headless implementations. Our entire product has well-defined interfaces, and it has the ability. We have API documentation for all of those. So those are three products that we just kind of briefly talked about, and they are all three good products, and they all three stand on their own. They all three have different use cases and different customer bases they're kind of looking for. And so it's not about the competition. It's about matching the right product to meet the needs of the customer that fit their use cases. Because the use cases for one customer might not necessarily mean they're right for each of those products. And having multiple options in the marketplace is good for the customer. So being composable means that we have options to best fit our customer needs. If your customer has use cases and Sitecore Search is the right choice, use Sitecore Search. If it's Coveo, use Coveo. If it's SearchStax Studio, use SearchStax Studio. And more interestingly, because of composable architecture, sometimes customers are going to provide us really complex use cases where maybe the right solution is all three of these products or more. That's really the beauty around composable architecture, is that it's not about one product versus the other product. It's about how each product can solve different use cases and create solutions for your customers. Now, here's where the hard part comes in with composable architecture, is that how do we learn about the other product? Going back to my time as a consultant for so many years, and as consultants and advisors, we lean on the double that we know, rather than attempt to suggest options for things that we are less experienced with. If we're comfortable with something, we're going to just go with it. And sometimes that means that we don't necessarily listen to the use cases. As consultants, it's our job to be the expert. And so if we're only the expert in one product, that's going to be the product that we suggest over and over, regardless of the use cases. This is the hard part about composable architecture. We must continue to learn about different products and understand which products are right for the customer and which are not. And sometimes it's less about the customer as it is, the overall use case and solution and what's right for them. One of the things I've learned was that the customers don't always know exactly what they're looking for. They might think they do, and it's our job to kind of help guide them towards the right solution. But how do we learn about other products? Time is a scarce, non-renewable resource. So with that being said, I would like to take an opportunity to dive into SearchStax Studio, especially looking into how we connect with Sitecore from an on-prem capability. And so I don't know, how many people who have had exposure to Sitecore to a SearchStax Studio. So how about we learn about it? I'm going to take a walkthrough of the SearchStax Studio and provide some information so you can be better acquainted with another product and be able to speak intelligently about it. Remembering that I'm not here to sell you on SearchStax Studio. I'm here to showcase other options. At the end of the day, it's our job as consultants to pick the right product for the right consumer. So with that, let's see here. Oh, yep, demo time. All right, give me just a second to swap the screens. And we are going to go. Okay, let's see here. Somebody out in screen share land, tell me if I have taken us to a different screen share.
Yes.
Okay.
I can see SearchStax Studio.
Perfect. Fantastic. Okay, great. All right. So to kind of showcase kind of the SearchStax Studio homepage or product, one of the things I want to first kind of start off with is, what is site search? And so if you think about a website, and we're going to use the SearchStax website as an example, site search is exactly what it is. If you type in to the search bar, you have autocomplete, you might have spell check. If I misspell Sitecore, you'll see here it's still finding their correct spelling. If I press enter, we're going to get some results, and you're going to see that, oh, I misspelled Sitecore, so it really knows it's Sitecore. and we have 679 results. We have a couple different promotions. We've got some facets on the left side. When I talk about site search, this is what we're talking about. And so this is the primary use case that Studio provides. And so what I'm going to do is kind of show you how this all connects within Sitecore, and then we're going to walk through a couple of the features of SearchStax Studio, just so you can get a feeling for how this works. So when you log into the dashboard with Studio, you're going to get presented with the dashboard. And the dashboard, and pick an account. And this will take a second. There we go. All right. So you can see here we have a number of different search apps, and I actually right before this presentation, I went out and created a Columbus SUG Sitecore or search app, and so that I can use to kind of connect the Sitecore, and you all can kind of see how that works. So to give you a brief overview, what we have here, we have our dashboard, which is going to start to be populated with analytics as people start to use our site. We also have a couple different more analytics. I'm going to go through these in a second with a different app. But the one thing I want to show you is that we have this results configuration. And the results configuration is what you're using to actually create the API response for the search results. So when you send a request for a search query, the results configuration is the field set that you're creating that's going to send the JSON API response. And so when we look at these returns, the reason why I'm coming to here is I can see our return fields. These are the fields that come straight out of the box with Solar that SearchStax Studio knows. Now, this is clearly not all the fields that we have or need or want. We're going to have to do some adjustments to the schema in order to get more fields. Well, we're doing this through Sitecore. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to go ahead and short circuit a few things. And of course, for people who understand there might be magic happening behind the scenes. The only thing I'm not going to show you is me downloading our module and using the package wizard to install the module. Otherwise, everything that you're going to see here is once the module is installed, this is where we're starting. So once our module is installed using the Sitecore install wizard, right, you're going to see that we add in a couple more boxes into the landing pad or the launch pad here on the Sitecore Experience platform. And you see here we have the studio configuration, and then we have a couple quick links that take us back to the dashboard that we had. So we're going to go into the SearchStax Studio configuration. And before I get in there, I'm going to dip into the control panel, and I'm going to show you the indexing manager. You'll see here, these are all the standard Sitecore indexes that we use with Sitecore. This is a fresh install, and you'll see here that, and by the way, I'm actually using SearchStax Cloud to connect the Solar for all of my Solar services for this demo. So just kind of give you an idea around that as well. All right. So with that said, we're going to configure that Columbus SUG application that I just installed. So I'm going to plug in my username. I've already got my password in here. We're going to say load accounts, which I think they were already loaded, but I'm going to do it again. I'm going to choose the account that I had, which is going out and fetching our apps. And then under search apps, I have all of my apps, and I have the Columbus SUG app that I'm going to go ahead and create. I'm going to go ahead and create this as an index in Sitecore. So just a few quick configuration items. We're going to select our root node. Now, this is a very vanilla version of Sitecore. So it is just the Sitecore Betty page, and we have the Sitecore content home as our root item. If you have a really complex kind of sprawling website, or maybe you even have multi-site solutions, you can actually add a number of different root nodes that as you need to fit your search. What we're doing here is we're creating a unified index that we're going to be able to search against to see results. You can ignore the hosted search page password. There is an option where we have a hosted page, you can set a password. And then this last one is kind of interesting. Reset the index when rebuilding. We actually have kind of solved for switch on rebuild in a different manner, where if you want switch on rebuild, where the index does not reset as it's rebuilding, then don't check this box. But if for some reason you don't want the switch on rebuild functionality and you want the index to be completely reset and empty while it's rebuilding, then that's why we have the option here for the resetting the index when rebuilding. We're going to leave that alone. I want the switch on rebuild functionality. So we're going to go ahead and click save. And we're going to confirm because it's actually going to restart our Sitecore process. So give it a couple quick few seconds here as we wait, add some traveling music. Local installs are great. And now you see here that we now have an index showing up in our configuration manager for SearchStax. And you can see here it's the Columbus SUG 1558. We got the Sitecore content home, and you can see here that our endpoint is this endpoint with our select. So this is really just the configuration for this index. When I go back to, I'm going to close this out, and we're going to go back to our control panel. And I'm going to click on Populate Solar Managed Schema.
Pete, quick question. Is
Yes.
is SearchStax HIPAA compliant?
Is what?
HIPAA.
Yes. Yeah, we are HIPAA compliant. We are GDPR, and we also have our ISO 27001. Don't correct me on the numbers there. We also have our ISO certification.
Okay.
We
Great.
are also hopefully in the future will be also FedRAMP.
Thank you.
So you can see here that our Columbus SUG, if I unselect all these, our Columbus SUG 1558 index is now showing up in the populate manage schema, which we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to go ahead and populate the schema. Should take just a couple seconds. It's a pretty small, schema. Computer's running slow. There we go. All right. That succeeded. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to flip back to our studio, and I'm going to refresh this page. And we're going to see that we still don't have any fields here. So I'm going to go under settings real quick. I'm going to go to search API, and I'm going to reload our schema from Solar so that the dashboard is now aware. So now that I reload our schema, is it 2 shakes? Configuration reloaded. I go back to our results configuration, and you're going to see now we have a number of new fields that are in here. Now, mind you, that this is a vanilla Sitecore install, so I don't really have a lot of custom templates in here. But this gives you an idea of the connection between Sitecore, the schema, and the dashboard. And so now I can go in here and actually choose a number of results. So now, and then if I wanted to, I can come out here, I can click on Indexing Manager, I can rebuild this index, and actually it'll go through here and then rebuild really quick. Only did one item, the home item. I don't have anything else in there. And so then, that's how the connection to Studio works. When we look through a little bit more, just to kind of show you how our headless component works, in previous versions of our module, we had to have configuration files that we get deployed out to the content delivery server. And then that would allow the content delivery server to be aware of the index. And so then your front end could reference the index. That's no longer the case. We no longer need to move configuration files out into the content delivery. And we're really looking at this from more of a headless perspective. So when you come out here to say like the content editor, you're going to see that we now have a delay because content editor. The downside to testing configuration changes in the demo is that you have to wait for Sitecore to wake up for every time. All right, so if you click on system and under modules, you're going to see we now have a SearchStax module under system. And click a little bit more, you can see we actually have our indexes. And so our Columbus SUG index is actually configured all through Sitecore. And you can use GraphQL to grab this item specifically, or grab all the items that are in this index specifically, so that your headless implementations can be aware of your connections and everything like that. So you don't have to necessarily store that information in some kind of hard-coded properties file or in JavaScript or anything like that. You can use GraphQL to pull this information and get access to your studio connections. And so this was kind of one of the big innovations we did. If anybody saw my SugCon demo, or it's not SugCon demo, our symposium demo that we did actually back in Chicago, you'll note that I was actually using a headless version through Vercel of our accelerator on Sitecore 10.3, and we were using this item through GraphQL to capture that information. All right, so now that we have kind of the connection from Sitecore and the connection to Studio kind of configured, let's just kind of walk through what Studio actually does and is from a product. So, and for that, I'm actually going to use our corporate website simply because it's got data and information. So I am going to flip over to our corporate site. Let's see here, account, SearchStax. And now this is our corporate website, Search Studio. We eat our own dog food here at SearchStax. And so you can see here that in the last month, we've had about 1.3 total searches. We've had about a 28.4% click-through. All these analytics are things that we track out of the box when you're using our accelerator in our JS, our suite of JS tools. And so here you can see kind of what the searches are. You get an idea for the popular searches that are coming up on your site. You get an idea for the no result searches. These are searches where somebody tried searching on something, didn't get any results. And so this helps marketers kind of understand, do I have content missing somewhere? Apparently soft commit is something as one word that we've had 11 searches on and we haven't had any content. So it might behoove us to put something out there or create some kind of synonym or rule so that soft commit gets broken out into soft, keyword soft and commit. And then we also have our searches with no clicks. These are things where people searched on something, they got results, they didn't click on anything. Quickly going through the rest of our analytics, we have the number of items. So these are the actual results within the search repository or the index. You can see what your most clicked are. You can see what your least clicked are. You can see what your impression counts are. And real quick, going back to here, you can also drill down into, whoops, let's go. Yeah, you can kind of drill down and see what are the different results that people are clicking on from the search term, and then what the average position has been for that. And then we also have a power search. This is more of just a reporting tool. So I can come in here and say, I want to see where the click-through rate is less than, say, 20%. And then I can say search. And now these are all of the search terms where our search count and our hits and our click-through rate was less than 20%. Going in through our Search UI kit for those that are in the front end devs and in the audience here, we do have our Search UI app. So this is more of a headless app. It's pre-generated, so you get a kind of an idea for how the solution is put together. Or you can use one of our JS frameworks. So we do have a number of frameworks. Angular is coming soon. We also have Next.js on the horizon, and these provide their own discrete. I click on oops. Go to the React guide. You can see here for the React guide, we have all the different widgets that you'll need for getting started with it. And so this is all of our wrappers for React, etc. For the JS side, you can see we have all of the import and the npm installs that you need for our JS headset, our headless. So closing that out. And then we have our results configuration. This is where again we're setting up the API. These are all the fields that our result sets uses. And you can also create your faceting. So this is where we would go in and say all the facets that you see on this side here for like content type, product, platforms, industry are set up here on this left side, and you can specify, you know, how many facets you want to view. And then last but not least is the sorting, where you can drop down and see the sorting. You know, we default by relevance, but you can also sort by newest content and oldest content. Going into basic relevance, these are things that like are pretty basic when it comes to site search. So you have all your stop words. These are words that search is Studio is not going to search against. So words like a, and, or, but, for, these are words that, you know, they're so common that it doesn't make sense to try to match against. So we're just going to not do that. We also have synonyms. You can set up synonyms where, you know, based on what's used, you can either have a single directional synonym or a bidirectional synonym. A good example of this actually is with Adobe Experience Manager. And so if I type in AEM here and I press enter, you're going to see that we get results for AEM, but we also get results for Adobe Experience Manager. And so this allows us to make sure that customers or that browsers users are seeing the correct result. Spell check, pretty simple spell check in terms of you point it to a field. You can either have it data driven or dictionary driven or both. But the idea is point it to a field that either has all of your content in it or at least all of the words for your spell check that you want. And then based on the frequency and whatnot, it will determine what the right spelling of words is using kind of the nearest normal neighbor algorithm. But the real heart of what we get into with Studio is in our relevance modeling. And this is where you can really craft individual search experiences for multiple places across your site. It's also where we can start to use personalization in order to affect you know, the search result based on who's browsing the site. One of the things that you can set up within Sitecore is we actually implement a rule, a personalization rule that says, hey, if you're using personas in Sitecore and this user is of a persona user, when somebody uses my search site, I want to use a different relevance model based on the persona that Sitecore is actually identifying. And so when you do that, then you can connect it to one of these, like say so like a developer or a business user as an example, and you can curate your results based on that persona. So what's actually in a relevance model? We start off with the search fields and like kind of really dive into which fields within your implementation are you searching against for hits. What about filters? You know, hey, I only want to include results that match a certain value. So maybe for content type, maybe I have a blog search and only want blogs to show up on this particular page. This relevance model can be set up so that it's only going to provide results where the content type is a blog. You can also kind of really fine tune your search results. So maybe there's a few pages that a crawler picked up or the indexer picked up that you don't necessarily want as part of your results. Then you can actually do that where you can specify, hey, if any of these pages match, whether it's by URL or page or a path, Sitecore path, or even item name, you can do all this in the exclude and it'll exclude it out. Also, and if anybody's familiar with Sitecore Content Search API and having to build Sitecore Content Search API experiences, one of the things that Sitecore doesn't necessarily provide out of the box with that particular mechanism is the ability to boost. I mean, a developer can boost and they can do that through code, but for a marketer to have to submit a development ticket in order to get a boost field seems a little obnoxious when there's like 2-week build cycles and then a release cycle and then testing. And so one of the nice things with SearchStax Studio is our ranking. This is where the marketer can come in, select which field they want to rank against, and set their own boosting rules. And then next is rules. This is where you can really go in and set discrete rules that do different actions. Here's one that's kind of just it's just a funny one where it's like, hey, if you search on security, we're going to filter on something. We're going to boost using a different value. We're going to boost using a function, and then we're going to replace the search term with antivirus. And this kind of just shows you how you can really use rules in a relevance model to again further refine and curate the result set. Last but not least is the promotions. And without going too deep into this, this is, hey, if somebody searches on something, we want to also bubble up additional content. And this can happen as internal or indexed items, and this can also be external facing. So if you look here on AEM, but also I'm going to search for Sitecore, you'll see here that we have some promoted results, and this is coming through our internal promotion. We also have an external promotion that's linking off to an external site. And so this is how you can kind of promote both internally as well as externally different things. A good example of this is if you're attending an event and the event has an external site, you want somebody to be able to go to that external site for your support. And so that's really the heart of what the Studio app does. It's a really powerful tool in terms of site search. We have an internal site preview that allows you to use and kind of see all of the features within Studio without any of the UX shine. So this is really just viewing what the API is spitting out and showing you the raw information. So this goes back to where the results configuration is set up to actually provide all of these fields that are coming in through the tool. So that's kind of a quick demo. I can go much deeper, but I know I'm about 40 minutes in. Want to save some time for questions. So I just, I'm going to switch back to my slides super quickly to finish off this. And I'm going to assume that we're back to our demo slides. So with that, I want to thank the user group for having me, and I'll see if there's any questions.
So go ahead. I was going to say, if anyone has any question.
Yeah. So a quick question, do SearchStax has components, pre-built components, like how Covio has Hive components?
Yeah. So in terms of components, we have a couple different things actually. So if we look at our resource or documentation, when you're using our module, actually, let me dip into the module because there's a couple different ways that if you're using the Sitecore Search module, the connector, we actually do have. Let me just get this out here. I think it's under renderings. Feature SearchStax search page. So we have pre-built components for Sitecore, specifically for MVC Sitecore, that allow you to drag these components onto the search page, build a search experience directly within Sitecore, within a Razor template or CSS/HTML, and you can use the Sitecore's presentation properties to put these components into it. And when you do that, it'll automatically configure the search. Basically, it'll drop down, say, what's my search index that you're using? It's going to go back to that item that I showed where you link it. And then once it's linked, it connects all the dots for you. So that's one way that we provide kind of pre-built components. We also have, I don't have it installed here, but we also have a secondary package for Sitecore Experience Accelerator specifically that bubbles up an SXA friendly component within Sitecore. So we have that pre-built component. But we also have our front-end components. And I know that everybody's kind of moving towards kind of a headless architecture. And so to kind of highlight a little bit, on that. You know, we have we have JS, Vue, and React. But when we look at these, you can actually see we have all these different widgets. So at this point, now it's about kind of, and I'm realizing I'm not.
Yeah, you're not sharing that screen. We are
yeah.
still on Q&A.
Yeah, sorry about that. Let me actually fix that, and I can do that right now. All right, here we go. Quicker. And so here you can see that we have all these different JS widgets. Sorry, to circle back and show you. Here's the Sitecore renderings under feature, SearchStax, and our SearchStax page rendering. These are the renderings that come with our connector. But then with all of our
I'm sorry. Stay.
Go ahead. Okay. And so then we have all these widgets that I was talking about with our JS. So then it's a matter of just kind of putting the widgets together. So as an example, when you're getting started here, you can just say, hey, we're going to add a search input widget. We're going to add the results widget. And you're you basically build your search results page kind of using these JavaScript components, if you will. So I would say, yeah, the answer is we have some pre-built components.
Thanks for walking that across.
The other
That's
thing,
really
just to kind of follow along with that, especially when you use our the Sitecore connector, we also have the ability to have different themes, and you can actually kind of build one of these themes. So let's say I want to select the citrine theme, right? And I'm going to say demo, and somebody has already selected that because we'll say Columbus. Oh. So now I'm going to go into the theme editor, and so here we have, you know, like the search. I'm going to press enter. This is kind of our standard theme, right? And I can go in here and I can actually edit each of these components. I can look at the HTML and CSS. I can look at the CSS, and I can draft a theme, kind of create my theme within our theme editor, and then I can connect it to the app. And so then when you use Sitecore and you come into the configuration page, there's a cloud icon here for syncing the theme from the theme editor. So whatever theme you decide to use, you can sync it, and then our MVC component will automatically bring in that theme and display it for your purposes. So that's another aspect where we have kind of, I would say, pre-built and a theming capability. Any other questions?
Anyone else has?
It's nice to see the tricks of the trade there, the theming and bringing that in. You know, obviously could test the you know, the speed that you could build these things, having used all your good your Search Studio before as well. One question actually, just on with your demo, Pete, was you had a local instance. I naively probably assumed when I've been sort of working with the product that you'd need to have a public facing instance to be able to crawl the content, because if it wasn't public facing, they wouldn't be able to crawl your content. Did I sort of get that wrong?
Well, if you're using a crawler, that would be correct, Sean.
Yeah.
So we do have two different ways that we can index content. And so the first way is using our crawler. And so if you do have a crawler and you have a website that doesn't, maybe it's not on Sitecore, maybe it's on any other platform, then yeah, the crawler is going to have access to that. Yeah. However, when you're using our Sitecore connector for Studio, it plugs into a Sitecore implementation. And so instead of crawling something publicly, I'm actually using Sitecore for Sitecore, and we're pushing Sitecore content from even a local implementation, such as what this demo is running on right now, to SearchStax Studio as a SaaS product. And so we're able to push it instead of having to worry about crawling.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I was always assuming that it was a pull, but a push would obviously work, because yeah, that's yeah. No, thanks. That's interesting. Thank you.
So, Pete, I understand that SearchStax is focusing on they're focusing on content search for a long time. Is there anything for the e-commerce in the roadmap, or like, Sitecore is pushing for product recommendation and stuff like that. Is that
Yeah, I mean,
something?
Sitecore has a leg up, right? I mean, they purchased Reflection, which was really a product recommendation engine.
Right.
And they've been over the last couple of years, they've been piecing that apart to create Discover. I think they call it Discover 1.0, and now they're on Discover 2.0, which is really Sitecore Search, trying to solve the site search use case. And now they're working on Discover 3.0, which is like, the product recommendation engine from Reflection plus the site search. And
Right.
so, search or sorry, blah, too many S words. I'm just going to say it. Too many S words. Sitecore definitely has like where SearchStax Studio really shines is we want to be simple. We want to make search easy. And site search can be really difficult depending on the kind of product that you're using. And we feel like, we fill a gap in the marketplace where, people don't have efficient site search. Now, when it comes to e-commerce, that is something that we're always looking at. E-commerce adds complexity to site search. And largely kind of talking through our aspect of, we want to make search easy. We feel like there's a lot of space for us to make search easy in the DXP space without even touching e-commerce. So yeah, I think, at least for the time being, you're not going to see a lot of use cases that work well with SearchStax Studio in the e-commerce space. But it also doesn't mean you can't mix and match. It could mean that maybe Reflection or Discover 1.0 or Discover side of Sitecore, maybe that works really well for your product recommendation engine, but you also need to have site search. And one of the use cases that we were actually seeing is having customers implement both SearchStax Studio along with what was Sitecore Discover. And that made for a really nice implementation because we could, product recommendation coming from Reflection, aka Discover, but then the site search coming from Studio.
Okay. What is your, what kind of response you are getting from the healthcare customers? Because we recently, implemented one customer where they have used Yext. If you know about it, Yext, I think, is HIPAA compliant, but and they're on pass. But if I look at feature-wise SearchStax versus Yext, SearchStax is way ahead of integration and how it works. So that's why I was asking about the HIPAA compliance.
Yeah, we actually have a number of healthcare customers. And healthcare is actually one of our industries that we focus on pretty heavily, both because they have a need for site search. They have a massive amount of content that serves different populations, from patients to members to providers to doctors to other healthcare professionals. And so being able to search on that content efficiently, have proper faceting, provide different search experiences through relevance modeling. We actually find that it works. Our product works really well in the healthcare space. And again, we are HIPAA compliant. We don't advocate for people to index their PHI and their member data inside of a marketing database, but at the end of the day, we follow all the rules that HIPAA requires, and that's why we were able to really stand on our own in the healthcare industry.
Great. So just one more question, when it is a Sitecore project, Sitecore comes heavily with Sitecore Search, right? So if I need to tell customer why they should consider SearchStax, what will be something that I should point out that, okay, instead of going to Sitecore Search, go besides PaaS, I am talking about SaaS model here. So crawler. So why I would choose SearchStax?
Yeah, so I mean, I think going back to my going back to kind of the talking points about why one product over the other, it's really going to come down to use cases. If you have a customer that's looking to go to XM Cloud or procure XM Cloud from the very beginning, you're going to have using Sitecore Search is probably going to be better for them. But if something about Sitecore Search doesn't jive with them, maybe it's price, maybe it's something else, or maybe it's other use cases. It doesn't necessarily mean they're pigeonholed into using Sitecore Search with XM Cloud. There are other options on the marketplace, and I think that's one of the reasons why, we talk so heavily about choice is good. Now, that being said, if your customer is on XM, XP, Sitecore Managed Cloud, any of the on-prem or PaaS, technologies for Sitecore, we feel pretty strongly that SearchStax is actually the better choice. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we do have the module. Allows for a tighter indexing. You don't have to do a crawl. Sitecore Search, they're a crawler and push API implementation still. Again, works fine, but we do have that tighter integration on the XM and kind of content management side. With regards to feature set, largely we're doing the same thing. We do all the same synonyms, promotions, relevance modeling. It might look different. It might feel different, between the two products, but at the end of the day, the use cases are the same. Where there's a lot of differentiation is like when we look at Coveo as an example, where Coveo has 20 different features to our 2 features that we really solve. And that's great. And if your customer has, 18 or 20 use cases that meet all of the features that Coveo has, also great. One of the things that we're seeing though is kind of this weird transition where folks are realizing, hey, we're paying for all of these features for Coveo, but we're already only using 2 of them. And why are we still using Coveo if we only need these 2 features? I don't need the other features. And there's other products, whether it's Sitecore Search or whether it's SearchStax Studio, there's other products out there that are actually cheaper. And so, why continue using Coveo? And that's actually been, I would say over the last year, we've had quite a number of conversions from Coveo to SearchStax Studio.
All right, we are on the top of the hour. I guess.
Himadri, I have a question.
Quick.
Yeah. So Pete, Sitecore Search has one particular requirement, basically the particular feature, that is, it is supporting multi-site crawling. If you want to achieve something in SearchStax, is there anything available out of the box? Like, just example, I have my website, and then there is a press release website, then there is a reports website, and when I'm searching on my number 1 website, will there be anything like I will be able to display results from press release and reports?
Yes. So, and I can actually show you real quick, and I realize we're at the top, but I'll do this real quick. We actually have one of our customers is Nashville.org. They actually index from 6 different external sites, and they all feed into our, is it .org? Maybe .gov. Yeah, .gov. And they actually index from 6 different sites. And so you'll see here, if I do a search for like budget as an example, budget, let's say budget. You can see here that this is their view of our accelerator. They like this look and feel, so this is what they've gone with. But you can see here under sites that we have they have a property assessor site, a legislative archive site, Nashville, and the hub Nashville. And so these are independent sites that are all being crawled, feeding into the Studio index. And then you can combine that with the Sitecore module that's indexing from the Sitecore side. And all that matters is that when you're crawling, that the fields that you're capturing are just, standardized field names, that when I do a search for results, I'm getting the title in the title field, I'm getting the description in the description field, and so on and so forth. And so with these, you can see, like for the property assessor ones, I'm going to click on property assessor. And you can see here, we just filter 22,000 items almost instantly. And now if I click on this one, you'll see this is actually going to take me to a different site. And so this is the padctn.org site that they're taking me to for that result. And so kind of gives you the example of how multi-site works.
Okay. So, like, there is one way is crawling. So you mean to say that we have to write our own crawler?
So
Or,
we have a couple different things. Number one, we have the ingest API. Again, we are an API service at the end of the day. So if you
Okay.
do have complex crawling requirements and a standard crawler that we can provide doesn't necessarily fit your needs, you can write your own crawler. You can manage your own crawler. You can push using our ingest API. That being said, when you purchase Studio, right now we do have a curated crawler, if you will, where during the onboarding process, our team will actually help get your crawler running and set up and working. It'll make sure that all the fields are going where you want it, and then we'll manage that crawler. We're also working on our own crawler interface, so you can create your own crawlers within the dashboard and manage them directly. So we have that coming down the pipe in short order as well.
okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pete. This
Yeah.
was really enlightening to learn about SearchStax. Okay, thanks for doing this session. And
Yeah,
this
and
is
thank you for
recorded.
having me. Absolutely.
Yeah, so it is recorded, and I guess you are okay with publishing this in the YouTube, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We're perfectly fine with it with any publishing.
All right.
Just make sure I get all the royalties. I'm kidding.
Sure. All yours. Thank you. Thanks everyone for joining the session.
Nice to see everybody. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Pete.